You dudes, Oren here. I want to spend a little bit of this week making different types of videos regarding the Detroit Lions and uh, the topic of their defense, because I've been hearing a lot throughout the season about whether or not the Detroit Lions defense has improved or regressed since compared to last year. Does Aaron Glenn need to be fired? That all that sort of stuff, and um, that sort of thing. And I want to make a few some sets of these videos since we are officially 2/3 of the way through the season. All NFL teams have played through 12 weeks out of the 18 weeks. So I figured that this would be a good time. And this is the first video of a few videos I'm going to make about the Detroit Lions and their defense and seeing where they're at. But this specific video is going to be comparing the Detroit Lions 2023 season to the 2022 season, and they're comparing their defenses, specifically where they're at with PFF grades as well as team statistics, and then where their rankings are, whether or not they've improved from last year, or if it's increased or decreased. And we're going to get into that. And then just to kind of give everybody an objective view, statistically speaking, about whether or not the Detroit Lions are making progress on their defense compared to last year. So without further ado, let's get into the PFF grades. So overall for the defense for 2022, they had a grade of 60.4, which was tied for 28th. And this year, right now, they have an overall grade of 72.3, which is 15th. So their ranking has improved, as well as that grade has improved. So, and not by a little margin either, but somewhat of a larger margin. And then run defense has last year it was 55.5, which ranked 24th. And then this year, the PFF grade for run defense is 77.4, a large leap there, which ranks third in the NFL. And the ranking is a huge leap there too. So arguably, I think everybody knows this, but the defending against the run has been the biggest improvement for the Lions this year on their defense out of everything. And then as far as the tackling PFF grade goes, in 2022, last year, Lions had a grade of 62.8, which ranked 11th in the NFL. And then 2023, this year, that grade is slightly lower with 60.6, which ranks 13th. And then the grade is also slightly lower from 11th to 13th there. So a little bit slightly worse on the tackling there. Pass rush, last year they were graded at 71.2, which ranked 15th in the NFL, like right around the middle. And then this year they rank 71.7, which is almost exactly the same grade as they had last year. And that is ranking 16th in the NFL this year. So it's they're right around the same spot, pass rushing in terms of the PFF grade. So slightly higher on the grade itself, but slightly lower on the ranking compared to the rest of the league. And then the last one, PFF grade topic, coverage. That is their grade from last year was 48.8, which ranks 32nd, and that's last because there's 32 teams. And this year their grade is 61.2, which was a large leap up from that 48.8. So they improved that grade there, and then their ranking is 26. So they went from last 32nd to 26. So 26 is still toward the bottom of the league, but it's an improvement, like slightly more than marginal, I would say, for that. Now let's go into some of the statistics from last year compared to this year. And since the season isn't over, we're only at 2/3 of the season, and I have last year's full season to compare. I just kind of, for most of the stats, I went with the averages and, like per game and that sort of thing. So let's start with average points per game, because when it comes down to it, the points determines the win. So Average points from last season, 2022, it was 25.1, which ranked 28th. And then this year they are at 23.5, which is tied for 24th. So a slight increase, marginal increase in the average points, and then somewhat of an increase in terms of the ranking there, depending on how you interpret the tied portion of it. So, and then average yards per game last year, they were at 392.4, which ranked 32nd, which is last. And this year so far, at 2/3 of the season, average yards, they are at 318.8, which ranks 10th. So that is a huge increase there in terms of the ranking. And then 318 yards per game. I don't know if that's supposed to be a big increase there, or if it's just the rest of the whole NFL is getting better at getting yards, overall average per game. But it seems the Lions have improved there based on the ranking there, or the other teams just got worse at defense. Average rushing yards per game. Last year it was 146.5, which ranks 29th. That's toward the bottom of the league. And this year, the average rushing yards per game is at 91.3, which currently ranks 5th in the league. So that, again, that is a huge step. That's right up there with like the rush defense, the average rushing yards. So they've improved against the rushing attack quite a bit. And that might be their calling card of their defense right now. And that was something that they needed to address the last 2 seasons, if you think about it. And then average passing yards per game last year, they were at 245.8, which ranks 30th, again toward the bottom. This year, they are at 227.5, which is an improvement, and that ranks 20th. So their ranking moved up 10 spots from last year at this point so far in the league. So it appears that their average passing yards have improved based on that average from what we're looking at. So completion percentage from the opposing team's quarterback. Last year it was at 63.0, so 63%, and that was tied for 12th. This year, that opposing quarterback's completion percentage is at 63.0, the exact same number. So no increase, no decrease, the exact same percentage there. And only this time it ranks 10th. So a slight increase in the ranking from there, but the exact same average for the completion percentage. What a coinky dink. And then we kind of get into getting away from the averages of the statistics and kind of the other statistics. So the first one here is sacks. Last year, the Detroit Lions had 39 sacks for the season, which was tied for 18th. This year, so far, they have 23 sacks. So if you were to divide it by 2, multiply by 3, or however you want to average for their trajectory or what they're on pace for, they are on pace to finish the season with 36 sacks, which would be 3 less than what they had for last year, which would be a decrease. And their ranking right now for this year, they rank 27th in sacks. So tied 18th last year and then 27th this year in sacks. And then ignore the error there I made on that next line. And then interceptions. Last year, they had 12 interceptions overall, which was tied for 19th. And then this year, so far, they have 8 interceptions, which puts them on pace to finish with 12 interceptions again. And then their ranking for that statistic of interceptions is tied for 20th. So, which is lower than tied for 19th from last year, but it really kind of depends on like where you look at it, because you could be tied with several teams for one category and then tied for several other ones. So but as far as we can tell, the interception pace for this year and compared to last year is right around the same for all intents and purposes. And then the turnover differential. This is the one thing that Dan Campbell said that they needed to improve on most. And this is also kind of shared with the offense as well as with the defense, but it's a very important thing to consider as well. Last year, the Detroit Lions at 2022 season, they were at +7, which was tied for 4th in the NFL. So for those of you who don't know, this statistics, it basically they add the amount of interceptions and fumble takeaways that the offense has, and then to the amount of the interceptions and the fumble recoveries, turnovers in general from the defense. So if it's a plus number, that means your defense has more than your offense, which is good. But if it's a negative number, then that means your offense has had more turnovers than your defense, which is a bad sign. So like I said, turnover differential from last year, +7, tied for 4th. Both of that is really good. This year so far, the turnover differential, I don't know if there's a different way to say that stat, but that's what I'm calling it. This year, it is at -5, and they are tied for 23rd for that ranking, for that statistic. So, yeah, that's like I said, that's something big that's got to be improved on. So, and again, that's shared with the offense. So if you're throwing interceptions and fumbling the ball, and I think we all know which particular player we're looking at the most with that, then your team is not likely to succeed. So like Dan Campbell said, that's the big statistic to really work on. And then I have one more statistic, which is the amount of first downs. So last year, the amount of first downs that the opposing teams were able to get against the Lions was 377, which ranked 32nd last in the league. So they gave up more first downs than their team. This year so far, they have 216, and that puts them on pace for 324, which would be fewer amount of first downs they've given up than last year. And that current ranking is 18th. So that's just slightly below average of the rest of the league in terms of the ranking, but it is an improvement. So overall, when looking at the Lions and their statistics, whether or not they've improved from last year to this year, it looks like they have improved in a lot of categories. Some marginally, they've improved marginally, and then some of them, like, it's so close but slightly increased that you can barely tell a difference there. But definitely their defense against the run has improved dramatically. But sacks are a little bit down, so you'd like to see improvement there. And then interceptions, which kind of goes with turnover differential there too. That's kind of a big statistics that you'd want to see there. And then I guess the tackling, as far as the PFF grades goes, could use a little bit of an increasing there too, because I remember watching Hard Knocks, Dan Campbell and the other coaches put a huge emphasis on being able to tackle and getting the fundamentals down with that. Pursuit and tackle are the two things of defense. I think that was the quote or something like that. But yeah, do you guys think that defense is improved or still struggling? I know when watching a lot of these games, it really feels like the defense is struggling a lot. But I am seeing those, understanding those concerns, and I'm really curious if I can find some perspective to do this. And this video is one of those things to do that. So for me, personally, like, I only care if the defense is, like, average. I think the saying is, like, to have a Super Bowl team, you have to be elite on one side of the ball while the other side is just good enough to complement that other side, which is what I mean when I say average there. And for the Lions, their defense is doing really good in some things and then really bad in, like, some other things, and then kind of all over the place for the rest of it. But Yeah, definitely get more turnovers and definitely get more sacks is kind of what I'm leaning towards. But like everything else that looks like they're showing, based on these stats and these PFF grades, they've shown improvement in several areas. So let me know what you guys think. There'll be more videos talking about the defense coming up in the near future. So be on the lookout for that. Until next time, go Lions, one pride.